Stoops. They're an essential part of New York's urban landscape. For many New Yorkers, stoops serve as a front porch, a yard, and an outdoor patio. Stoops provide a place to relax, gather with friends, have parties, get jacked, get married, and host stoop sales. Stoops are part of what makes New York, New York.
You can't help but sit on the stoop and have a random conversation with a passerby.
And we talk on the stoop all day.
But hold on, what's a stoop? A stoop is simply a small staircase leading to the entrance of an apartment building or home. Their true origin goes back to the Dutch settlement of New Amsterdam in the 1600s. In the marshy lowlands of Holland, the Dutch built outdoor staircases as protective measures against flooding, and they brought the practice to New York, influencing the city's architecture. Even our word for stoop comes from the Dutch word, which literally translated just means stair. Many New Yorkers will probably remember how stoops became especially important during the pandemic, when public health rules made it hard for people to meet up indoors.
And particularly during the pandemic, we were out here a lot because it's the best way to sort of visit with friends, to be outside.
Since very few New Yorkers own private outdoor spaces, stoops became a natural meeting place. For many New Yorkers, stoops were the center of social life, at least during the pandemic's summer months. But stoops have actually been connected with public health for hundreds of years. If you think New York streets are gross today, imagine what it was like in the 1800s. As the city grew more populated and industrialized, streets filled with more and more trash, animal carcasses, and other unhygienic substances. Stoops literally elevated the entryway to one's home above the dirty public streets. Due to New York's high density, most homes lack back doors or alleyways, and many stoops have a side door functioning as a separate entrance. Wealthy New Yorkers built stoops to create entrances separate from their servants, which was something the city's upper classes considered to be important to their dignity. Although stoops were associated with wealth, these exposed staircases became a standard architectural practice for many homes throughout the city, especially on brownstones, a type of New York townhouse, which I have a whole video on if you're curious. However, starting in the 20th century, many New Yorkers began to view stoops as pointlessly ornate and old-fashioned. Housing developers were happy to ditch them. And after World War II, powerful urban planners like Philadelphia's Edmund Bacon and New York's Robert Moses instituted massive revitalizations of neighborhoods seen as undesirable, instead remaking them according to their version of the ideal community, which involved wide open spaces and clean geometric angles. In these visions, stoops rarely had a place. Neighborhoods that once overflowed with the buzz of city life, with people relaxing and chatting on stoops and playing in the streets, were now empty and sterile. Stoops and other practical amenities like laundromats and small neighborhood stores were vital to creating a sense of community in an otherwise impersonal and sometimes alienating cityscape. Stoops are also home to a classic New York tradition, the stoop sale, where residents sell handmade and secondhand items to people in their neighborhood.
A lot of people put stuff out for sale, and it's real good quality stuff.
It is my first stoop sale. I am really excited to turn over my own wardrobe, and offering it up to the community has been fun. I was saying I probably met more people today than I have in the 4 years that I've lived here. All different kinds of people that I never would have talked to before.
The role stoops play in urban life has been studied for decades. Jane Jacobs was a journalist and writer who rose to prominence in the 1960s, partially through criticism of leaders in the male-dominated field of urban planning, such as Robert Moses. People hanging out on stoops resulted in what Jacobs called eyes on the street, a relaxed form of social surveillance which made neighborhoods safer and reduced the need for constant police presence. Her influential critique of urban planning, The Death and Life of Great American Cities, advocates for the importance of sidewalks in maintaining community and supporting casual public interactions. A sidewalk itself means nothing without the environment surrounding it, and stoops turn New York sidewalks from walking corridors into true community spaces.
Stoops are not only for practical needs, but stoops create conversations.
It's a great possibility of being in touch with the neighborhood, and if the stoop wouldn't be here, I would hardly know as many people as I do.
It's partly because of Jacobs' writing and tireless activism that many urban theorists consider stoops to be important features of many historic neighborhoods. While academics and people in the ivory tower may now understand the significance of stoops, we're unlikely to see a resurgence due to construction laws and the simple fact that they cost a lot of money. A new stoop can cost as much as $100,000, and if it covers even a tiny bit of public sidewalk, the owner has to pay the city a yearly fee, Although stoops are a beloved aspect of life in New York, exposed staircases can be considered inefficient and wasteful uses of land. The vertical space above and between stoops shrinks the maximum size of buildings, which could be used to provide more housing in a city that desperately needs it. Additionally, the exposed stairs on stoops can be dangerously slippery in the winter months, and stoops make buildings much less accessible to people with disabilities compared with street-level entrances. Striking a balance between preserving cultural heritage, building communities, and efficiently using land is a perpetual problem facing New York City.
Stoops, like brownstones, are these cherished, iconic aspects of New York culture, which do not easily fit into dense urban environments in the 21st century.
In the end, these quirky Dutch stairways will probably end up similar to how they began, generally owned by the city's wealthy elite and prized as a status symbol more than anything else. The rhythm of New Yorkers' daily lives today is much different than the 1960s, when stoops were a core aspect of life in many neighborhoods. On hot summer days now, many have access to air-conditioned indoor spaces to escape the heat, and people can turn to the internet to satisfy their desire for connection.
In other words, these days, most people don't feel the need to walk down the street and sit on a neighbor's stoop.
But as the pandemic taught us, stoops still hold value as places for social interaction, and you can still find pockets of the city where stoops are used as much as they were in past eras. New York streets would certainly feel emptier and less interesting without them. In a concrete jungle of 8 million people, stoops provide connection and community.
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, as it really does help the channel. For more videos on New York history, check out my videos on Williamsburg or Coney Island. Thanks for watching. Peace.